Thank you to Joa Beauty for sponsoring this video. Hi friends, my name is 50 degrees Fahrenheit today because it is chilly and it is also sweater season. Every time I put on a turtleneck, people say I look like Asian Steve Jobs, and I'm gonna take it as a compliment. I got some comments. One, saying, can we get some more positivity on this channel? I feel like every time we're making a video, we're just being too negative. And you know what? I can understand that. I treat it the same way as getting 100 positive comments, but that one negative comment ruins your day. So just because I made a few negative videos, suddenly it's all negativity. But I also understand, we can just make a positive video. So today I'm gonna be talking about why X education is so good. And I'm saying X because if I say SEX, this video, no money. And Frederic need money because Frederic pays rent. If you're unfamiliar with this series, I put on my makeup while talking about pop culture, media, and just things that interest me or are stupid on the internet. And we actually have a sponsor for once. That's a beauty brand! Y'all, she's finally turning into a YouTuber, right? So I'm gonna get into Joa Beauty. We're gonna be starting off with Joa Beauty's eyeshadow palette, Drinks on Me. And I'm gonna zoom you all in because people have been saying, I can't see what you're doing on your eyes, so fine. I hope this is good enough for you. Also, because people like to get into my business, yes, I have some breakouts. Live with it. This is going to be a first impressions. Oh, there's the camera. Oh my god. This is the palette. It's supposed to be inspired by drinks that you usually have during the holidays. And I'm 20 and I live in the United States, so we're just gonna be talking about kombucha because that's my favorite drink. Y'all know I'm addicted to it. But this is literally the color palette I use for my outfits. Like, this is how I dress in a palette. I've always said New York City brownstone building. Look, we got our browns. We got that one plant that's there, the door. So I'm just gonna get started. They have this dual-ended brush. I personally don't use dual-ended brushes too much because it's gonna get jammed, but it is convenient. I understand not everyone can afford, a lot of brushes. The reason why I like this brand is because it's affordable. It's drugstore makeup, so it's not, too expensive for y'all. I understand a lot of us are not ready to spend $30 on something, but I don't know why people don't talk about this brand. It's Korean owned, so it's a little bit like K-Beauty. They're also connected to Kiss Lashes, so if y'all like eyelashes, that's the same brand. I just don't wear them. All right, I'm gonna start with, let's go easy. Smoothie and rosé. So for anyone who doesn't know what sex education is, it is a Netflix show that is talking about teenagers. It's a high school show. However, it's not your typical high school show, and I'm gonna get into why that is. It's based in the UK, and the premise of the show is talking about two people, Otis and Maeve, who start this X education therapy side job in school because a lot of students are uninformed about X. I'm not gonna get into the plot too much just because I feel like a lot of us are aware, and if you want to know it, you can watch another video about it. The show's been out for a few years, so there's no reason for me to do a deep dive into it. But what a lot of people don't realize just by looking outside, they're probably thinking, oh, this is so inappropriate. Like, why are we having high schoolers talk about X education? Like, that's so vulgar. And that's what sets it apart instantly, because I feel like a lot of teenage shows nowadays, you have Riverdale. I always talk bad about that show for a good reason. But shows like Riverdale and Euphoria, I feel like a lot of the actors and actresses are, let's just say, hot, because they're not underage, okay? They're in their 20s. They don't look like high schoolers at all. So it already disconnects us from relating to it because it's like, no, I didn't see someone with a full-on beard and a six-pack who looks 6'7". That's not normal in high school. You see people with acne, people who are going through puberty. We kind of look weird for good reason, because it's the whole point of finding out your sense of self. We're experimenting in high school. I don't know how it is now because I haven't been in high school for 3 years, so maybe everyone is hot just because I feel like the tween era is dead. And for those who don't know, tween is like an awkward teenager. We're learning how to be cool, so we go through emo phases, we get bangs for no reason, we get acne everywhere without asking. That's what our body does. We have our voice changes. None of that is represented in teenage shows because all of them have already reached adulthood. And while sex education does have people who are in their 20s, the thing that makes me able to relate to it is they seem like they could be in high school. I look at them and I'm like, oh yeah, that guy totally reminds me of this dude who I had growing up. Even though the show is called X Education, I don't feel like the characters are sexualized. Does that make sense? Teenage X is not supposed to be soft prawn. It's awkward. We don't know what we're doing. Even college students still have no idea how to go about it. So why is it that in most teenage shows and movies, whenever they do anything sexual, suddenly the camera, like, it zooms in on their bodies. It shows basically the most intimate parts of the experience, but never the awkwardness. It's always turned into, oh, thirst traps. I'm not gonna call it a fetish, but like Hollywood has some weird desire to always show teenagers in a sexual manner and not in the teenage way, because they are underage. Remind you, they're underage technically. We don't need to sexualize them. Let them be awkward. And that's what sex education does. Even though you see people doing it, they're not afraid to show private parts. I still don't get the feeling that we're looking at them and thinking, oh my god, they're so hot. It's more like, oh, they're learning how to go about the relationship. And that is something that lacks in general for any sex education. In school, they don't teach you about homosexual sex. They don't teach you about anything really besides like, oh, these are the parts, that's how you use them. Make sure to use protection, don't be stupid. It's like, that's done, that was a 2-hour class. It's always treated as something taboo, and it shouldn't, because it is a reality that teenagers go through. If you're a parent and you're like, ugh, I don't want to think about my child. Did you not go through that as a teenager? Are you above it all now? Like suddenly the idea of X is like, oh, that is something that should never be talked about. Like, I don't want to ever know what my child is doing. How else do you think they're going to learn? If it's not in person and you're not telling them the safety procedures and the reality that, yeah, there's a lot of things that go into this, and you have to be aware of the other person and understand consent and understand their body parts and how to appreciate and respect them. If teenagers don't learn that, what they're gonna do is end up like this kid who only has the online view of sex, which is unrealistic, mostly unattainable, and meant to just please people. For those who don't know, this guy in the show, he's like, oh, if your thing isn't big, then that makes you less of a man. He has a warped mindset of how sex is supposed to be. And a majority of teenagers have that now, just because they have to learn online, because no one's gonna teach it. Everyone is scared to. But somehow the show combines comedy, drama, and education so that you can enjoy the show while also learning stuff. Before the show, I had no idea half of the female parts. Well, I also don't need to know because, like, I'm not going to use them. But if I have a daughter one day, I would want to be able to tell them, hey, these are the parts. Don't be ashamed of this. This is a thing that happens with women. You don't want them to freak out when they have a period. What if they have questions on their private parts? I want to be able to answer that because I am a father then, and I don't want them to be ashamed to talk to me. Even though Otis and his mom's relationships is, in my opinion, a little bit unrealistic. Like, what kid in high school is that self-aware of themselves and how to go about talking to adults in a very educated manner? I think that's 1 in a million. It's still nice to see a healthy relationship between a mother and son. It's awkward, of course. Like, Otis does not want to talk to his mother all the time about sex therapy. And I should probably mention Otis's mother is an sex therapist. It's nice to see a teenager, especially a male teenager, talk to his mother and not be that stereotypical, oh, I hate my mom, I don't want to talk to her at all, like, I close the door, I never speak to her, that type of movie. Just because you're a teenage boy does not mean you can just talk bad about your mother, okay? So that brings us to the characters. Oh, I love these characters so much. Also, I should probably explain, I'm doing a halo eye, so like I'm doing dark around here and in the inner corner, and then we're gonna do shimmer in the center. So with every high school show, you're gonna have your archetypes. Like, we have the jock, we have class president, we have the weird kid, we have the gay kid, we have goth, popular group, like all of them are in there, but you don't see them as that. The show almost makes them seem superficial, but then they break down that stereotype by adding layers to each character. And this is what I like. They have character development. You hear me, shows? Development, okay? To the companies out there, listen up. Almost every character, even the minor ones, have more to them besides what you initially see. I don't think that's asking for a lot. But apparently, that is rare to come by in high school shows nowadays. Okay, I want to do like a night out colors, so sparkling rosé. The shimmer ones are a little pressed in the pan, so just use your finger. I'm gonna finish it off with mojito. I have high hopes for this green because I want it to look like, not Christmassy, but like more evergreen color. I want it to look like I'm going on a night out, even though I don't go out. Wow. Ooh, this is very sultry. I've never done a look like this in a while. This is like sexy Frederic. Alright, and I'm gonna finish this off with the Make Her Jealous gel eyeliner. They got 3 colors. I'm gonna use the green one. Just the small conservative wing. I'm also gonna put this in my waterline. Ugh. Oh, I hate this. Oh. Man, I look good. Okay, that's close enough. That you can back out now. Look, they also sent me a mirror. This is the first handheld mirror I've ever gotten for makeup PR. Thank you, Joe. I literally needed this. I'm tired of using some random eyeshadow palette in front of me. So I'm gonna just talk about each character. Let's start off with Otis. He's like your average Joe. He's the protagonist. There's nothing too insane about him. He's just has a mother as a sex therapist. He's awkward, he doesn't know how to handle social situations too well, but when it comes to giving advice, he's one of the best people out there. And now that I'm thinking about it, like, that is a person you can have in high school. They may be awkward when it comes to socializing, but in terms of information, they're very smart. His best friend Eric is gay and black, and at first glance, people might think, oh, is he gonna be the stereotypical, like, use him for a joke, you know, use him as the sexual character, make him say something outlandish, make him be, like, very extra, just for comedic effect. He's not that. You can see that Eric has more depth to him because they tell you more about him later on. They're not as forced, you know, they come natural to him. He's not outspoken, he just knows how to insult people well. And he mainly insults Otis because they are best friends, like that's something you do, and one of them has to be the funny one in the relationship. Some people might still disagree with me, they might be like, I don't like the fact that it's a gay black best friend who's a side character, because that happens a lot. They usually use like a gay black character as the scapegoat, they're the token character. I'm here for diversity, and my only purpose is to add comedic jokes in order to make the main character more main character. That doesn't happen with Otis. It's not like Victorious where everyone just relies on Tori, you know, everything is surrounded by Carly, everything revolves around Rachel Berry. To give an example of a black character that is used to serve the main character, Mercedes from Glee. Never given the solos, maybe like 1 or 2 in a season. But at the end of the day, she was there just as competition for Rachel. Emphasis on for Rachel. It was to serve another character. Andre from Victorious, to serve Tori. That doesn't happen with Eric. As for his family background, they do show him going to Nigeria for a season, and I like the fact that they can show a different culture because it is his own storyline. His family isn't 100% accepting of his sexuality, not in the sense that like, oh, you're gonna go to hell. That's what I appreciate. They don't just say the normal stuff like, oh, God hates you. If anything, the father is the most worried, which I don't think we often see a father being close to the son, especially if they're gay. It's always like, oh, the mother understands me more, and the father's very distant. In this case, Eric's father worries for him. In the end of season 1, Eric has the confidence to go to the dance fully in makeup. It's flamboyant, it's his own expression. His father, instead of saying, you know, the F slur to him, all he says is, are you sure you want to do this? I'm worried for you that you might get hurt. That part made me cry because I think it's so important to see like a father care about their son. I feel like we're used to fathers being distant, which shouldn't be the standard. While they're having a conversation, his father yells at someone who's trying to get past his car. And up until then, apparently, his father never yelled at people. So that was also new for Eric. He said, wow, I don't think I've ever seen you yell that loud. And his dad says, you're right, I don't. Maybe I can also learn from my son. And that just warms my heart to be able to see a father both understand his son, care about his well-being, and not just push him aside. It wasn't just a lesson for his father, and I think that's important because we can all learn from our own parents. Next is Maeve. She is basically Otis's polar opposite. She is portrayed as the goth character, emo, doesn't want to talk to people. In the beginning, we hear that she's branded as the SLUT, rebel girl. We don't really think rebel girl. That's also portrayed in her outfit. It's very grungy, all black, and she has highlights that are pink. But when you learn about her, she's actually very smart. She is underestimated. She comes from a family who has a bad addiction problem. The point is to not judge a book by its cover. I know we do it unintentionally, like we probably already thought of Maeve as this, but once we learn more about her, it's like, oh, I probably shouldn't have thought that, and we reflect on our own selves. So the reason why Maeve and Otis become partners is because they realize, hey, a lot of these students don't understand how to go about X. Maeve is smart enough to handle the business side, Otis is the therapist in this case. And that's pretty much the main plot of the story. It's how they go about their X clinic. But early on in the show, this is like the defining event that makes us understand Maeve more and understand Otis as a person. Spoiler alert, okay? Like, you should expect this. She needs to get an abortion, and the only person that she trusts enough is Otis. Even though she is known for not trusting anyone. That is like part of her personality. I don't like people, I don't want to trust anyone. But she trusts Otis enough to bring him instead of Amy, which is her other best friend, the one that she's known for years, who is part of the popular group. We'll get into that later. Maeve, when she finished the procedure, her first thought wasn't even, oh, Otis is still there. She's trying to fill out the forms and is surprised when she sees Otis is still waiting for her. And she didn't think Otis cared enough to stay for her. So just by saying you waited, we already see that it's breaking down her own boundaries between Otis and her own relationship between other people and being a trusting person. And she even trusts Otis enough to take her home. Moving on to Amy, which is my personal favorite character because she is the funniest person in the show. She's initially part of the Untouchables, which is the popular group, but she also hangs out with Maeve. And in season 1, she eventually leaves the Untouchables to be with Maeve because just because you're popular doesn't mean you have to abide by the rules. It was very clear from the beginning that Amy didn't fit in with the Untouchables. And Amy's stereotype is supposed to be the dumb blonde, but the jokes that she makes doesn't reinforce that she's dumb. It's like more that she's unaware sometimes and she's ditzy. She's just there to be witty and to have fun. And there's an important part of the show where even if you still thought she was a dumb blonde up until then, there's an event that breaks that down and lets you sympathize with her. Basically, every character that you initially hate, just from first impression, you eventually sympathize or at least like them a little bit, just because that is how high school works. We shouldn't just hate someone because we get one bad first impression of them. And also, it is possible to show a well-rounded character that doesn't just go by stereotypes in a show, because that's not the standard anymore. For example, Adam, he is the bully for Eric. He doesn't like the fact that he's gay. We see him push him against a locker multiple times, steal his lunch. He's a dick at first. You see him as a stupid kid who doesn't care about school, and then you realize his father is abusive to him and treats him like nothing. He always calls Adam worthless. You'll never amount to anything to me. Nothing Adam does can make his father happy. I don't think anyone would be happy going into school like that. And then eventually you learn that, oh, Adam is also bisexual. So his internalized homophobia was expressed by bullying Eric because Eric embodies something that Adam felt like he could never achieve. And this happens in real life, just in general. It doesn't have to be about gay stuff. Anytime you see someone who is confident and can be themselves that you deep down wish you could achieve, you're gonna hate them probably. Even Mr. Groff, who is Adam's father, at first we do hate him just because of the way he treats Adam, but eventually you learn his past, which is his father was abusive to him and he never learned how to treat other people that way. So he is just pushing onto his son the same thing his father pushed onto him. And that's not an excuse. Just because your parent does something to you that's abusive doesn't mean you can do that to your children. It lets us understand him more instead of just saying, oh, he's just a bad principal and parent. It's that, and also he had a bad childhood and was incapable of understanding how to love other people, even his own wife, because they go through a divorce. And now he has to understand how to love his wife and love himself. Like, he's going through his own journey in terms of self-love and understanding how to express that. And there are so many other characters I can get into, but we just don't have the time. Like, even in the Untouchables, there is diversity within there. You know, there's not just all white girls. We have brown girls. We have a brown gay boy with a loving family, which is like, wow, it's almost like gay people can have a good childhood. We have people of different body types, fat people, skinny. We have disabilities. In terms of sexualities, we have pansexual, bisexual, gay, questioning, like, and it's all natural. I know we all talk about diversity, and obviously it's important to us, but I appreciate it. I know everyone appreciates it more when you can have a character with diversity and not have that part be the only thing about them. We don't need their sexuality slapped on their face. We don't need it to be stated every time. Their skin color doesn't have to be a defining feature about them. For example, we have Ola, who is pansexual, but she discovers that throughout the show because she's first with Otis and then with Lily. And in the beginning, you can already tell she is prideful. She wears color. You could tell there was something there that made her feel more queer than regular characters, but it matched her personality and character. Like, we would be very weirded out if we saw Adam suddenly wear only rainbow colors the moment he came out. It's almost like the show is able to have inclusive characters, but that's the least you care about because they have so much more to them. Even the class president, initially you think, oh, he's just a jock and he's on the swim team, he's probably a jerk. No, he's very nice to people. He also has 2 lesbian moms, but when I think of them, I'm not saying, oh, they're the lesbian ones. It's the mothers who are helicopter parents and are too controlling on their son, because they emphasize that story more than the fact that they are 2 moms. And it doesn't just end there in terms of diversity. Because it's a show that has a sex therapist in the beginning, they talk about therapy. All different kinds. Anxiety. Fun fact, high schoolers have a lot of that, especially nowadays because of all the pressures they have to deal with in life. We have someone who goes through sexual assault, and how do they combat that? How do they deal with that throughout the year? These may sound like real world topics, but high schoolers are already going through it. They can already start through middle school. So by erasing it in teenage shows, you're also invalidating them when they watch stuff. I think people have to understand, a show is not just a show. It is very impressionable on younger people, on anyone, but especially younger people. By seeing themselves, it makes them feel more accepting of whatever they have. Someone with anxiety, if they never see someone talk about it and it's treated as this taboo thing that is an adult thing that you have to suppress, that's not going to reflect well on them. It should not be difficult to find that for representation, and you don't have to just make it their character. Like, obviously someone has anxiety because of something. Jackson has it because of the pressures he has to uphold, being class president, swim team, always trying to please his parents. That's something everyone goes through. The pressures of college are always there, and being successful as a teenager, that's already laid upon us. So Hollywood, you don't have to act like we don't experience it, because we all do. The fact that people today are still surprised by teenagers having rising cases of depression and anxiety, it's almost like they have more things to be anxious about in life and depressed about. There's so many factors that go into it, obviously. There's not one defining thing that is making us more depressed. And it's also not all being over-exaggerated, because that's dismissing the condition. I believe this show makes us feel better about accepting ourselves in terms of having anxiety or being depressed, and it makes us want to get therapy or at least seek help. And because we see, like, Amy goes to therapy after her sexual assault encounter, we see a bunch of parents going there, and Otis is talking to people in a therapist manner because obviously he learned it from his mom. That makes that will make people feel more comfortable going to it, because it's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Because it isn't, okay? It's almost like going to the doctor or the pediatrician. It's just an appointment. There's nothing wrong with you just because you go to it. And it would be easier for everyone to seek help if we were more open about it and had a healthy conversation that it's okay to go to therapy. And you should not feel ashamed, because it's a normal thing. I want to get into more about Amy. So I talked about how, you know, we see her as someone who may be dumb blonde at first, but later realize, oh, she has more to her. She's funny. She's just carefree in the world. But when she experiences her sexual assault encounter, I'm not going to go too much into it because you should watch it for yourself. And also some people don't want to watch it again. First, she writes it off as nothing. She says, oh, a guy wanked on me and then it ruined your cake. Sorry, that was a bad accent, but she cares more about the cake than what she just experienced, and Maeve is aware of that. So for Maeve's birthday, they go to the police station to get help, which I'm glad they did that, because you should not feel ashamed of going to that too. Even though she seems she's fine, eventually she ends up with all these girls in detention because something they did. And while everyone else is arguing, eventually Amy says, can y'all shut up? Like, stop talking about a stupid boy. And she starts crying because, fun fact, sexual assault does not just come and go like it is a never-ending experience. Once you go through it, it affects your daily life. You just become used to it every day. So eventually it overwhelms Amy and she starts crying because she still can't get on the bus after that experience. So what did the girls do? They all go to the bus station and help her get there. And I think everyone liked that part because it shows that while we may not like everyone in high school, we can all relate to something, especially women in this case, because it is a problem that women mainly go through. Not just solely though. Okay, obviously everyone can go through sexual assault, but I'm saying this is for that moment because it is meant to be something for female solidarity. So let them be in solidarity, please. I saw comments saying like, oh, why they have to do something feminist in there? Y'all act like that isn't a problem then. High schoolers go through it. Anyone can go through it. And by having that there, it's not only empowering for those who've been through it, but it shows that you don't have to hate everyone in high school and you don't know everyone else's story because all those women have gone through something themselves. As for the school setting itself, the director said I wanted UK and American school influences to make it a combination so it's like you don't really know where they are even though you can hear the accent, but in combination with the outfits that they're wearing, it makes it more timeless. And that was the intention, is to make it so anyone can watch it at any point. Because you see people wearing things from the 70s, 80s, early 2000s. Like, there's not one time period you can see. Yes, it's modern day because of smartphones, but the fashion doesn't necessarily mean that either. It's almost like another world because while the school isn't completely modern, but also not like 1950s, it's a combination of both. They wanted it to be timeless, and they quite literally did that with the setting and the fashion, so I appreciate that. And I could get into why season 3 was not as effective as seasons 1 and 2, because some people have some opinions on it. But today is supposed to be a positive video, so I will not get into it. But if you want me to discuss why season 3 was not as good as the other two, because I think 1 and 2 are untouchable, let me know, because now it is the end of my makeup. I'm going in with the Joa lip oil. I've used the purple one already because they have 3 colors as well, and I just think this pink one works better for us. It says plumping, it doesn't hurt. It's just like a little bit tingly. I think they put mint in here, but it smells like, wait. Ooh, it's like a strawberry, like a strawberry candy. And I personally love scent on my lip glosses, but this is an oil, so it's like, it's not sticky at all. But that brings me to the end of my makeup. I think I look pretty good. I literally could go to a dinner right now and I'd be like so put together. But that is going to bring me to the end of the video. If you want more about sex education, let me know, because we could easily go into season 3. It's just too long for me to talk about right now. Subscribe, obviously, if you haven't, for more videos every week. I try to post every Saturday, and if I don't, turn on my post notifications. My social medias are all right here. Go follow them. I recently got an Instagram from my cat, and I have a podcast. Go listen to it. My cat is not here. He is sleeping somewhere else. Either way, I love you all, and everything is less than 3.